Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Ian Wilson, who's the founder and president of Makuri Technology, who specialise in the design, manufacture and supply of high-performance weir line systems to optimise the front end of hard rock mining process plant equipment, serving a global customer base. Ian is a mining and business professional who's worked for some of the largest multinational mining companies in the world and has a background in maintenance, engineering, operations, business development and executive management. Founding the company, Ian was going to tell us a little bit more about how they help mining companies achieve maximum output using their equipment, technology and processes. So that's welcoming into the podcast. How you doing, Ian?
Oh, excellent. Thanks, Rob. Wow, I've got a big agenda there. I hope I'm up to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you will be. Sure you will be. And obviously, as we were speaking off air, there's certainly a lot to talk about. So I wondered if you can give our audience a little bit of background about yourself. Obviously, I mentioned that you've worked in, obviously, for some of the big mining companies and obviously worked in a variety of different roles. So I just wondered if you can give us an overview of your background and your career before we start talking about Makuri Technology.
Certainly, yes, I did. I had the pleasure of working for many multinational mining companies in Australia, Papua New Guinea, and in Indonesia, and there, I went on some fairly steep learning curves as a result of that. One of the challenges I found when I left Australia and worked in developing countries is to keep the sustainability of what we were doing. Expat turnover is the big problem. Expats stay for 2-3 years at the most, come in with their own views, their own preferred suppliers, their own ways of doing things, and the locals sort of, okay, he's the next expat and he's got his way of doing it, and they sort of just hum along with it and know that when that guy leaves, and he could leave tomorrow or whenever, and what's going to come next, and so it develops a lot of issues, even a lot of complacency even. So I saw that. So that meant the sustainability of the operation was really difficult. In turn, when I then came back and worked in Australia, I found that there are other challenges to do with how mine sites are operated, moving to contract employees, moving to driverless trucks, reduction in carbon footprints, more health and safety challenges, and moving to zero manual handling if possible. All that is extremely difficult to manage at a mine site level, at a corporate level, as a supplier. So I looked for a niche part of that I felt I could do and do well. And I didn't start off quite in a niche way. I tried to do all things for all people, but I quickly learned that wasn't the way to go. And so we honed ourselves down, we focused down, and we came up, and we still are, with better solutions for a small part of the plant, pretty much.
Okay, so I just wondering if you can give us an overview of Makuri Technology. Obviously, you started the business, so I just wondering if you give us a little bit of background and history of the company.
Sure. Well, I guess the first thing people ask about is the name. It's actually a Japanese term for a type of steel that's used in the making of samurai swords, and there's this typical combination of soft and hard steels that are folded together, and they create all sorts of patterns in the steel. And there's many terminologies for that. Damascus steel is another one, and there's many different types of ways the Japanese make samurai swords as well. But I was looking for a a unique name that it was easy to spell, relatively easy to say, it was memorable, and more importantly, captured that technology. And because actually in mining and in wear products, you typically have or need to have a combination of hard and soft. All hard doesn't work and all soft doesn't work. So, and depending where you are in the plant, there's varying relationships in that. So I thought the term fitted pretty well. And so we came up with it and ran with it. And it's, that brand's been around about 7 years now. So, overall the business has been in one shape or form or the other. Now it's in its 15th year, but the Makuri branding is the most recent. The evolution of what we did, I started in the GFC, in the global financial crisis. I had an opportunity to go back. I was working in Indonesia. I had an opportunity to go back and work on a very large project in Australia. And I actually did for 12 months, flying in and out of Indonesia to Australia. It was bizarre as that sounds. But I felt that I had much more that I could offer, and so I said, I need to take the chance to go into business now and see if I can convert all these ideas and things I can do to improve things, and I've got to give it a shot now, or it's sort of going to be too late. So I did. Crazy timing, but it actually turned out to be good because people will serve, the big providers pulled their services back. I was sort of left standing there, so I got plenty of opportunities, and we just took off. But what became readily apparent was that I was a commission agent for certain suppliers, and then I became an agent for some of them. But there was always gaps in the market, and there were gaps that they didn't want to fill because they were too hard to fill. So that became us. That became who we were, or who we are, I should say, of taking on what the others won't or can't do and doing it extremely well.
So you only focus on the process plant front end. So I just wonder if you can just go into more detail around that.
Well, yeah, as I said, we started off trying to do mining equipment and capital equipment, supplying crushers. Look, there's plenty of capital equipment suppliers out there, and there's plenty of companies in the mining equipment space and aftermarket space. But there's not too many that actually specialise in that, what I call the forgotten front end of the process plant. And, typically you go into a process plant, the people that even work inside the plant start thinking of their brain turns on at the mill, at the SAG mill, and it works backwards from there. And I sort of get that. You understand that because that's the money-making machines. So there's not a lot of effort, understanding put into optimizing that front end. It's just sort of considered a necessary evil, and we see an opportunity to really make it hum and sing and perform and add significant value to the operation, far greater than what most people can imagine that's there to be had.
So what are the key components of your technology?
Well, we started off knowing that there were better materials, more expensive materials that the OEMs weren't using, because they typically, with their high cost structures, can't afford to be searching for those better, or utilising them. But we can, because we have low overheads, and so we can probably sell a better quality liner at the same or less price than an OEM. We're paying more for it and selling it cheaper. But that's the competitive advantage that we bring. Changing the design of it, particularly in crushers with the cavity profiles, is very, very important. And when I say that, these materials and designs are adjusted for every mine site with its particular operational requirements, with ore types, throughput rates, planned shutdown intervals, and so forth. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You make custom products for each mine site. And even then, it's not a fixed thing. As ore types change, as the plant gets upgraded, for example, there's different demands on the equipment. So we are there to keep working through that and continue that optimization of the front end of the plant to deliver what it needs to deliver, to make everything else work properly.
And can you give us an example of this optimization and integration that you do for mining companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, we started off doing it with gyratory crushers, jaw crushers, and cone crushers, and didn't think too much about what was even outside of those. We became very, very good at that. But then we realized there was this big hidden problem, and it's called the reclaimed stockpile and the reclaimed feeders and the reclaimed feeder chutes. And no one knows they're there. They walk past and they see a stockpile. They don't even recognize that there's a tunnel under there and there's equipment under there. But often that equipment becomes the critical path on a shutdown. And it's not well managed. It's not well monitored because you can't monitor it. So we saw a whole bunch of issues around that. One, initially just to increase the life of the lining systems. And then it was, well, then hang on, the downtime to change these things is horrendous in some cases. So then we came up with single-sided bolting to deal with that. And that significantly reduces the downtime and reduces the manpower required to do that. But then as you do that, and you also increase the life of the liners, then the next question is, well, how long are they going to last and when is the next safe planned shutdown? So then you've got to develop a wear monitoring system to go with that. So one thing leads to another. And then once you optimize that, you're really starting to work on getting the front end. So I've neglected to mention what happens in that front end of the plant. So what we're trying to do, you need to deliver tons, but you also need to deliver product size. And you need to always have a full stockpile, or get it refilled as quick as possible, because all of that affects mill throughput, and significantly affects mill throughput to the tune of tens or hundreds of millions of dollars a year in typical gold, copper mines, right? So that's the opportunity I'm talking about. That's the opportunity that's missed. So we are doing everything we can to extract, wring out, squeeze out all that value in that whole front end. And it's a combination of, and it's a conflicting combination. More tons. If you try to deliver a smaller product size, well, the crushers don't deliver the tons. So how do you do that? So then how do you keep the stockpile full? So we have solutions for all of that.
How has Makuri Technology managed to stay at the forefront of innovation in linear systems for hard rock processing operations?
Well, first of all, we're a small company, and there is a benefit in that. Look, we are very quick to respond. We're very quick to understand a situation. It's very easy for us to focus on it. In fact, I get questioned by people in the industry every time they see another merger and acquisition by the big guys who just seem hell-bent on getting bigger and bigger. And when I say the big guys, I'm talking about the OEMs. There's only three of them, and one of them's huge and one of them's big, and the other ones, I don't know what happened to them. But the thing is that their strength is in how big they are, and they believe that delivers a degree of safety to the mining company buying new plant. And there's an old saying that no one ever got fired for buying product from the OEM. But are you getting the right equipment? Is it even anywhere close to being all matched and optimized before you start? And are they able to do anything after it starts to continue an optimization process? Well, they might even suggest they can or claim they can, guarantee they can, but in reality they can't. So that's where we step in and say, well, we do that. That's what we do. And we do it very well, and we give examples of that. So that holistic approach, which falls into, a general category of called mind-to-mill optimization. And mind-to-mill optimization is done to greater or lesser degree, or poorly, or to a greater extent. It's extremely difficult, and so we help bridge that. That all the trucking up to get material to the crusher, to keep the stockpile full, to keep the product there, and then keeping it at the right size and keeping everything happening. We end up being a critical part of that optimization process. There's plenty of people downstream from the milling that really are expert at what they do. So there's few opportunities for us there. The mining operations have people that can help them optimize their mining operations, and particularly when they look at the ore types and segregating ore types and understanding the blending of those and how to mine them and process them. So we're right in the middle. When that ore hits the grizzly or the primary crusher to when it goes into that SAG mill feed chute, we handle the grizzly to the SAG mill feed chute and make sure all of that is working, and nobody else does but us.
And how does Makuri Technology ensure that it's where Lily Solutions are optimized to address the obviously unique challenges faced with obviously individual processing operations?
That's a good question too. Look, you've got to keep revisiting it. You've got to keep looking at data. There's things that we do. If I think in my lifetime, what I've seen the changes, how we've transitioned from using tape measures and eyeballing things to now, laser scanning and now this online wear monitoring, and an online data like Aussie Soft Pi data, which we take, hundreds of thousands of data points and dump them into a spreadsheet and analyze how the equipment's operating. And we're typically the only ones that are doing that as well. So we can look at what we're doing. We can see the changes. We can map the changes. Where we still struggle, to be completely honest, is we try to encourage the mining companies to develop new KPIs that measure what we're doing in the terms of, has your wear materials per tonne of throughput dropped? What's the cost of your wear materials per tonne of throughput? That also measures carbon footprint. It's some simple KPIs that are really could do very well for the business to understand their improvements from a business improvement point of view, but also to tell the world that we're reducing our carbon footprint by consuming less steel per ton of production, right? So, but we haven't got them to do it. We talk about it, we publish it on our website, we put it in proposals to people, but what it ends up becoming still, unfortunately, is pretty much they want the performance, they don't really care too much after that. So, maybe you can help us.
Yeah, you obviously what you've been speaking about is obviously companies in production. Do you ever come in to work with companies prior to them going in construction, commissioning, prior to production, or is it always once a mine site is up and running and there's throughput going through the process plant?
Rob, we would love to work with front-end engineering, design, procurement companies prior to the construction to introduce far better technology from day one. But look, it's a bidding war. It's a game where they put a quote in, they're always going to put the cheapest designs. They're going to copy and paste designs from the past. They want to keep it down so they win the business. And unfortunately, in the industry, there's a saying, and I worked in the industry long enough to cringe every time I heard it, but it is, we'll fix the problems after we've got some cash flowing. And hey, I get it. For various, mining's a risky business. Typically now it's all done in very challenging in developing country and remote locations. There's sovereign risk. There's all sorts of risks there. So yes, getting the permit to even build the place now is a huge hurdle. So get the permit, get the place built, get it operating, get the cash flowing, and then we'll worry about all that other stuff later. And that's when they give us a call. Okay, you guys, we're ready for you now, right? So, but maybe that'll change. I'm not sure I'll be around to see it, but it'd be lovely to work with a company up front. It really would, but we haven't done it yet. So that's one I may have to put on my bucket list.
So what kind of person would be forward thinking, like you just explained, where they understand that your technology may come in at a later date? However, why don't we pre-plan that and bring you in earlier?
I'd like to think that where the industry is going with this reduction in manpower, reduction in manual handling, remote operation, that at some point there'll be a recognition that that's actually so critical to get that in place during the build phase and the commissioning phase, rather than trying to fix it all later. Because to fix it all later takes people. It takes people to come in there, people to analyze it all, people to poke their head in stuff. So that's what they're trying to avoid. So I think it will happen. I think your question's a very, very good one, and I can say it probably won't happen in those developing countries, because we see the dichotomy, the huge dichotomy between the developed and the developing and country environments. And I'm not talking about artisanal miners, working in the depths of with bare feet. I'm talking about still established multinational mining companies, but the challenges of dealing in those countries and the sovereign risks that go with them, versus what's happening in developed countries, where the legislation is getting more difficult. The pressures on them are far greater. So I would think that the big companies will address that, and it may not be that long before they do. So with the help of guys like you and doing podcasts like this, every flag we can wave to alert them that there is a different way to do it. I think that there's a huge challenge on us. The challenge on us is to get with the engineering companies, get with the consultants. And I met with some consultants in Singapore very recently, and we had a similar discussion about, and I'm looking around now we had a great discussion around this mine-to-mill optimization challenge. And they go in and audit it, but, and I said to them something similar to this, and there's, we really need to get it done in the build phase. So I think the more people I talk to, the more I spread the message and say, we can do things differently. It doesn't have to be like this. There's another term about the mining industry that, it's a very agricultural industry. A lot of the technology actually hasn't changed that much. It's now split between rapid technology development in some areas and some other considerations that simply haven't changed. So that front end of the plant falls into that. It's always, there's no point, or they don't get it, or they don't understand what's available. They don't realize there's a different way to do it. So that's the space you're in. That's the challenge we've got. And what I'm hoping is we've got some wonderful technology that's going to come on stream later this year, and at the very latest early next year, but I'm very confident it'll come on later this year. That will be a great opportunity for us to alert the industry to the different way to do business. And maybe that'll be the start of the impetus to get people to think differently. So we have to see if I'm up to that challenge, all right?
Yeah, and I guess it would be more expensive for you to come in an existing operation where,
absolutely,
and obviously there could be downtime with some, obviously the work that would be involved in the plant. So there's going to be downtime, lost production, for instance.
Well, Rob,
so I guess that could be an incentive.
Rob, unfortunately, they call us when there's a problem. So when they've had a catastrophic production loss, perhaps even some injuries, but normally it's a production loss, right? So then it's like, well, we can't tolerate this any longer. What are the options to it? And then the decision-making chain starts with, who can help us? And they realise pretty much the OEMs are useless. So then it becomes, who's there? Who's out there, right? And we typically don't advertise. We're all word of mouth. Someone says, oh, these guys can do that and these guys can do this. Okay, they give us a call and it's all a panic and it's urgent. So we run in and we try to fix things, right? So, but yeah, the cost that they take. Look, one particular very large copper mining company we were working with some years ago gave us a call because, and in fact, it was actually in their annual reports from the previous year, they'd taken such a production loss that it became, you couldn't cover it up, and a lot of these don't get mentioned that much, but this one was so huge, it affected their forecast of their copper production. And so they said, what's the solution to this? And they gave us a call and we gave them a solution to it. But so that's still where the industry's at. And it may not come as a surprise to some people inside the industry, but some of the standard of the engineering and design that we come across is so poor that it would have been so easy to fix up front. It would have just been so much easier, simpler, cheaper, faster, but they didn't, either through price or through lack of understanding. I'm never quite sure. When we see some of these things, we often sit down and do a bit of internal, ruminating on this, navel gazing and going, how the hell did they do that? Why did they do that? This is ridiculous, So there's plenty out there. It's not like I'm trying to find a needle in a haystack, I can tell you.
Yeah, and I suppose this is the reason why I do these podcasts, because what you're doing is making your technology, or anyone that's listening to it, you're making your technology aware that it's in the industry and can be used. And I suppose this is an educational platform. So anyone that's listening to this that may be in a startup phase or going through construction and may then pass this message on, maybe they obviously they might not be able to pre-think that there's going to be issues in the future, but say, hey, look, just listen to this, because this could save us a lot of time, money in the future.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's just making people aware of what is out there and not always doing everything the same that obviously the industry seems to go through all the time, no matter whether it's processing, could be mining methods, could be recruitment, it could be anything. That we tend to always do the same. But yeah, no, it's like I said, it's educational. So what you're highlighting is should be made aware to people within the industry, and whether they take that up themselves, that's entirely up to them.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. We're small and we're probably still relatively unknown, but the word of mouth machine works for us, but we are trying to emerge from that. Post COVID, we're trying to get a high profile on LinkedIn. We re-engineered our website last year, and I think it's a lot more effective. It's clearer, it's targeted, it's focused. And but if anyone's out there and just want to know more about what we do, please give us a call, drop us a note. Happy to have a chat to you and have a general discussion around how we can help you and work together.
Yeah. And are there any HSC and ESG benefits to what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the health, safety, environment thing I'd mentioned before about this less maintenance interventions, that's becoming a huge deal. Planned maintenance and less maintenance interventions and better and really good planning is still a huge challenge out there. So getting the maintenance intervals to be longer, now that's where we kick in, because we can do that. We can work with you to extend maintenance intervals. And it's not just by, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. That works in crushers, but it doesn't work for shoots. So you have to work in multiples of the shutdown interval. So whether it's a 10-week, 11-week, 12-week, 13-week interval, it's no good increasing it by 10 or 20%. It's just wasted money. So what you've got to do is effectively double it, triple it, quadruple it. Now, that's the challenge. And if you do, what happens is this. You don't now have people opening it up and having a look at it. They still want to. They don't trust you. They want to get in there and have a stick their head in type of deal. And I get that. But so that's where the monitoring systems come in. So I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but this is about making the stuff last for far longer and be far more reliable and be monitorable, accurately monitorable, so sitting in your control room, whether that be on the mine site or back in a regional centre or even a city somewhere, that what the condition of that chute or that crusher is accurately. And we are right in that space. So then there's all the spin-off of the less wastage, the less labour costs, the more predictable, stable operation. The whole thing comes into it, and that's the name of the mining games: predictable, stable operation with less people.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you're in the people business, but the only good news for you is there's people are still very hard to find. So
they certainly are, and the thing is, even with all the technology that will come into the industry, you still will need people. It's just obviously certain jobs will change. So
yes.
It's like any business. There's always going to be people that are needed. Whether whatever automation does come into the system, come into the industry, they will always need people to either use that automation, fix that automation, change that automation, and improve it. So yeah, you're always going to need people. So
look, I'm very happy to see that the industry is moving away from mind-numbing jobs like driving haul trucks on 12-hour shifts, year in, year out, on day shift, night shift, on fly in, fly out. That's very poor quality work. It's poor quality of life. I did fly in, fly out for a decade, and I know the effect it had on me and my family alone. So I think that's all great stuff. So what I could say to any of the younger graduates out there, or even the apprentices, is that there's huge opportunities in the technology space. There's huge opportunities everywhere in there to do this business differently, and be challenged and be engaged and have a career satisfaction and all the things that go with that. So I think that's the best thing I've seen. Yeah.
And I was going to say that would have been a good summary. I've got one more question. Got one more question to ask you.
Okay.
Obviously, what's the outlook for your R&D pipeline for the company?
Well, that's a good question too. Look, small companies like us, we spend far more on R&D as a percentage of our revenue than probably anybody I know. It may not be in total dollar value what others spend, but it's a huge amount in percentage terms. But I know what we have to do. So literally, without, almost on a daily basis, we have something pops up that says, can we do this better, or this needs to be fixed, or this needs to be changed, or we need to develop something for this to complement that, to stop. It's there. It's all there every day in front of us. So the challenge we have then is filtering that out and then saying, what are we going to do of all these projects, and how are we going to do it, and then who's going to do it, and what's the budget? It then becomes a real project management thing. So and part of that selection is how much value can we add. Making something work a little bit better is not good enough normally. It's got to be a step change in performance, or some significant, observable, compelling reason to do it. That's obvious to the customer. It's no good if you have to spend, give 100 slide PowerPoint presentation to explain the concept. If you can't get it across in a couple of slides, it's not going to happen. So there's all challenges in that. But the challenge, the space that we're in now, is very much one of technology, in the terms of we're always working with material science, and there's still a huge upside in that, in where material science. I can't imagine. I'm surprised at how much there still is. I mean, if you'd asked me back when I was working for mining companies, how much upside's in that, I would have said probably none. But now I realise the huge upside there just is in materials. Tungstens, titanium, ceramics, it's all out there, right? Niobiums. There's things that you can do that no one ever thought of before. So that's one thing. The technology in terms of electronics, whether it be wear monitoring systems and the design of those, but particularly in robotics. Look, there's now a range of robots, tractorized robots you can buy off the shelf. They've got articulated arms on them, but they in themselves are not enough. You need, if you're going to create, say, a zero manual handling system for, let's say, skirting liners on conveyors, you have to get the skirting liners can be placed near the conveyor by a forklift. It's then, how do they go from the ground to the conveyor, walkway typically, then from the walkway to the conveyor belt, where the robot would pick them up, and then the robot takes them in under the discharge chute and removes the previous liner and replaces that liner, and then it comes out with a worn liner, and then how is that liner then removed back down and placed back in a box on the ground. So there's a series of challenges that go with that, and we have sketched that out and believe that we have workable solutions for it. So that's next year. The other one that we've got, which I started pre-COVID and went on to the back burner as we did these wear monitoring solutions, was advanced lubrication for crushers, particularly crushers, gyratories and cones that have very large bronze bushes, very high surface area contact, and a result very high friction, and the bushes don't last and they burn, they're replaced. And for example, a large 750 kilowatt cone crusher consumes nearly 400 kilowatts just idling. So you've only got about 300 to 350 kilowatts available to crush. Well, that's fairly inefficient use of energy, of the machine. So if you want to spin that, if you want to spin it from a green point of view, and you say, well, that's sort of unacceptable, So what can you do about it? Well, other than completely redesigning it, which is not going to happen anytime soon, we need to reduce the friction inside the crusher. There are better lubricants that we can use, and we've identified that. We've been testing some of those, and so we will come out with advanced lubrication solutions for crushers, which can be easily retrofitted to all crushers that are out there. And we will have a significant impact in the reduction of carbon as a result of it. We'll have a reduction in the consumption of bushers. We'll have an increase in performance of the machine in terms of its crushing power, available crushing power. So, but I've got a few other fish to fry before we get onto that one again, because all this has to be tested in the field. And that's the part that, you know, the guys that develop this technology, when they develop it, they consider their job's done. When I keep reminding them, it's only just started. We've now got to take it into the field. We've got to go from alpha testing to beta testing, and then we finally get to ready to have case studies we can launch to the general public. And so those people out there that love trying new technology, give me a call. Okay, we're keen to work with you. So, so Rob, if you can help us with that too, be wonderful.
I will do my best, and obviously we've got a wide range of audience here. So, Ian, really appreciate your time in telling us about Makuri Technology and what you do and how you can help mining companies with their processing facilities. As you mentioned, you're more than happy for our audience to reach out to you. So what platforms are you on? We can include these all in our show notes. So what social media platforms are you on?
Well, look, we do have a limited space. I've kept away from the Twitters and the Facebooks intentionally. I think they are really not particularly suitable to us. I think LinkedIn is the great business forum, and we regularly post on that. And please engage us via LinkedIn and the LinkedIn Messenger as well. To me or to our company, I'm very happy to talk to people directly through LinkedIn. But of course, there's our website, and there's, you know, a contact us page on the website, and there's phone numbers there, I think, as well for our different offices that we have. But look, it doesn't really matter. We respond pretty rapidly to anybody. So whichever format suits you, give us a call. You know, and so drop us a line, drop us a note, drop us something, and tell us what your problem is, and we'd love to have a chat to you. Yeah,
well, you heard it there, guys. Really appreciate Ian's input there, and obviously explaining his technology. So hope you enjoyed that episode. Please share this amongst other people within the mining industry, so everyone understands that there is different ways in which you can obviously process material, and not always having to do it the same way over and over again. So really appreciate your continued support. Like I said, please keep sharing this episode to everyone around the world that you know, to get this message across. So until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.